in this video, we'll be seeing how to implement login and registration in Android. So we'll be creating a login and registration. On logging in, you can see that we are showing the name of the user and the email address, and we are also having fetch user button. When we click this fetch user button, we will fetch all the data related to the user, and we are simply setting it to the text view. So you can see the status and message, name, email, and API key. So we are using this API key to verify the request after logging in. We are also having a logout function. So if you click this, we will log out from the app. Okay. So this is what we are going to implement in this video. Let's start with the API part first. So here you can see that I have created a new folder inside the XAMPP installation. Inside htdocs folder, you can see a folder named login registration Android. You have to open this inside an editor. I have opened this inside PHP store. Now we can create a new file named register.php. The first thing we have to do is to connect it with the database. So for that, we have to create the database first. So open XAMPP. You can see that I have XAMPP installed and ready to use. So we have to start Apache and MySQL. Now we have to go to the PHP MyAdmin panel. So for that, click the admin. Now you can see I have opened the PHP MyAdmin panel. You have to go to the side and click new. Now you have to give the name of the database. So let's give the name login register. After giving the name for the database, click create. Now we have created the database. Here you have the option to create a new table. So give the name of the table like users. I have given the name for the table. Now we can choose the number of columns. So here we'll be needing columns for ID, email, name, password, and one for a token. I will explain that later. So we need 5 columns. Now you can click create. Now you have to give the name for the columns here. So the first one is ID and the type is int. Now you can move to the right side and you have to set it to primary key and auto increment. This option is auto increment, so check it. Now you have to give the email, password, name, and token. For email, we have to set the type to varchar and we have to set the length here. And you have to go to the right side and you have to set it to unique. Okay, now we have set the email unique. Now we have to give the password and token. Here you can see I have created the table with ID, name, and the type for the name is text, email, varchar of 300 length, and password that is of type text, and API key. Now this API key is text because we will be having a lengthy API key. So we will generate an API key. Now this API key will help us verify the request that we sent after logging in. So I will explain that later on in the video. So that's all. Now you can go to the bottom and click save. Okay, now you can see our table is ready. We are having the ID, which is primary key, name, and email, password, and API key. Now you can go to the PHP part. Here you can connect to the database. Now you can see we have done the database connection part here. And I have set the host name is localhost because we are using XAMPP in our system. So the host name will be localhost. And the username and password is root and password is empty. By default, XAMPP is having this username and password. So I'm using the default username and password. And we have the database name, which we created just now. Now you can create an if condition and check if the connection is successful or not. Okay, now inside this if condition, our database connection will be successful. Otherwise, we will print database connection failed. So here we have to accept the data from our Android app. So for that, we'll be using post. Okay, so come to the top and you have to write one if condition. And inside that if condition, we'll be checking if the post variables for the name, email, and password is empty or not. If not empty, we are checking if the data is not empty. We will only execute the if condition if the data is not empty. Okay. And we can do the same for email and password. Now you can open the if condition. And you have to close it at the bottom. You can also give an else part. Now you can see if the data, that is the name, email, and password is present inside the post request, we will execute the statement inside the if condition. Otherwise, we will print all fields are required. Okay. So hope you understand this much. After that, we'll be checking the connection to the database. Then we can make the insertion operation. For that, we have to receive the variables, that is the post name, email, and password to a variable. So let's create a variable for all this. Now for the password, we'll be encrypting the password. So we'll be using the function password hash. Here inside the password variable, we'll be receiving the encrypted version of the password. Okay. And we'll be saving this encrypted version to the database. Inside the if condition for the database connection, you can write the SQL query. So we are inserting the data into the table. So it will be like insert into table name, and the table name is users. Then we will give the values. So I will show you. Now we are inserting the values that are name, email, and password. Now let's pass the values. Now you can see our SQL query is also complete. So here the SQL query is insert into users. Users is our table name, and we are giving the name of the columns. So the first is name, email, and password. We are not inserting the ID and token right now because the ID is auto increment and it will be automatically inserted. So we don't have to do that. So we are inserting the name and email, then the password. So we have to give the values also in the same order. You can see values, name, email, and password. Okay. So you have to write the SQL query exactly like this, otherwise it will cause error. So now we have to run this SQL query. For that, you can write this inside the if condition because this is just an insert query. So you don't have to store the result variable anywhere. So inside the if condition, write MySQL query. So the first parameter is the connection variable, database connection variable. That is $CON. Then pass the SQL query, $SQL. Now, if this SQL query is done successfully, it will come inside this if condition. So you can echo success. Now you can also create an else part. Else, you can write like echo registration failed. So that's all. Now we have completed the registration part of the API. So now you can move to the login part. Create a new file, login.php. Now open the PHP tag. And in PHP, we have to receive the email and password. So let's write an if condition to check if password and email is there in the post request. Inside the if condition, we have to create a variable email and password to store the email and the password. Now let's create an array variable. Now this variable stores the results and we'll be converting this array to JSON and printing it. Now you have to connect to the database. For that you can copy it from the register.php part. So you can come here, you can and copy this much and you can paste it here and you can remove this unnecessary things. Okay, and close the if condition. Now inside the if condition, we have to write our SQL query. Select star from users where email equal to the given email address. Now we have to run this SQL query and this will return the user with the email which is specified. So after running this, it will return an result and we have to check if the number of rows is not equal to 0 or not. Now if it is not equal to 0, we can fetch the row. For that you can create a variable row equal to mysqli fetch assoc. Now this returns an associative array. So we don't have to do this inside a while loop or any kind of loop because we are only having one row. We are having the email that is unique. So we will be only having one row. So you can do it like this. So after that, we have to check if $email equal to $row of email. So here we are comparing the email from the database and the email that we entered from the Android. Now we have to compare the password also. So to compare the password, we have to use the function password verify. So here we are verifying if the email and the password are correct. And if it is true, we can execute the next statement. So here we will be creating our API key. So for that, let's create a variable API key equals. So now we have to create a unique API key. So for that we can try. And you can give this inside a try catch like this. And inside the catch, you can do an alternate method for this. Something like. You can do something like this. Okay. So we just need to create an unique API key. That's all. So this will be generated every time that we log in. And we have to update this to the table. So next we will be doing the update query. So now let's create the SQL query for updating the API key. Here in this SQL query, you can see that we are updating the users table and we are setting the API key to the one that we have created here. And we are also checking if the email is equal to the given email. So we'll be only updating the users where the email is equal to this given email. Okay. So now we can run this SQL query for that. If MySQL query pass the connection variable, then the SQL query. Now we have run the SQL query for update operation. Now inside this, we can set the result variable and we can set the status to success and also pass a message. You can also pass the user's name, email, etc. to the app. So I will show you how to do that. So now we have to use the results variable that we have created on the top equal to array. Inside that, we have to set the status first. So here we have set the status to success. So we'll be checking this status to check if whether the operation is successful or not. So I will show that. So next will be our message. So you can pass any type of message here. I'm passing login successful. Now you can pass the name of the user, email, and API key. So for that, name, and we can access the name like $row of name. And you can also access the email and API key. So let's hit an enter. And I will start here. Okay. So next one is email. So you can either use this email variable or you can simply type like $row of email. And let's do the API key part. You have to pass this API key so that you can use this while doing other operations. I will show you how to use this. So let's pass the API key, row of API key. Okay, now we have set the result variable and it's an array which contains status, message, name, email, and API key. Now we have to set the else part of all the if condition. So here you can see the if part for SQL update SQL query. So let's set the else part for all the if conditions. So now you can see I have added all the else part. So you can see it starts from here. The else part for the update query if condition, we can see that status equal to failed and the message will be login failed, try again. Okay. Here you have to check the status, that is failed, and the next part of the if is for the email and password verification. You can see the status equal to failed and message retry with correct password and email. And you can also see the same error message for the number of rows. Okay. And the else part for the database connection. And also you can see the all fields are required. This one. Okay. Hope you understand the else part. I just crop the video so that it won't consume so much time. So now we have to print the result variable in JSON format. For that, you can type echo JSON encode of $result. Now you can print it in a pretty way. JSON pretty print. That's all. So this is our login API part. So this is very simple. We are just creating a API key here and we are updating it to the table, and the way we are returning the result is in JSON format. Okay, so that's all. So it's very simple. Hope you understand. If you are having any doubt, you can leave the question in the comment. I will definitely answer to your comments. So let's start with our profile API and our logout API. So for that, create profile.php. Now here we have to do the connection part, and also we have to check if email and API key is present or not. So I will show you how to use the API key. So let's start the PHP, and we have to type the if condition to check if the post of email and post of API key is present or not. So not empty of $post of email, and we have to check the API key also. So here we are receiving the API key also. Instead of password, we'll be using the API key. Hope you understand why we are using the API key. So if the API key is not there, the user will not be able to perform the action. So that's why we are creating the API key here, and we are updating it on the table, and also we are passing it to the Android app. See, you can see that we are passing the API key also, email and API key also. See, you can pass many data. If the user is having something like phone number, address, you can simply pass the data like that. Okay, and we will be seeing how to access this data in Android later on in the video. So let's do the profile part. Now we have to, just like before, we have to access this to a variable and do the MySQL connection part of the database. Now from this API also, we'll be returning the result in JSON format. You can see in register.php, we are simply echoing it as a string because there is nothing much to pass here. We are just checking if the message is success or not. That's all. But in login, we are passing the name, email, and API key. So we have to use JSON for that. Okay. That's why we are using JSON here, and we are using string here. So we have to use JSON here as well. So now let's do the connection part of the database. You can copy the line from here and paste it here. So if the database connection is successful, we have to do the SQL part. So first of all, we have to verify if the API key and the email is correct or not. So for that, we have to select the row like $SQL. Let's do the SQL query for that. Select star from users where email equal to the specified email, this one, and API key equal to the given API key. So I will show you. So you can see in the SQL query, select star from user. Okay, you can see that we haven't added the from here. So simply type from. So the SQL query is like select star from users where email equal to the given email address and API key equal to the given API key. So when we run this SQL query, it will return data only if the email and API key matches. Otherwise, it will return nothing. So we'll be checking the number of rows. So I will show you. $res equal to MySQL query connection variable and the SQL. Now we have to check the number of rows. For that, if MySQL num rows pass the res not equal to 0. So here we are checking if number of rows is not equal to 0, then we can execute the if condition. So inside this we can fetch the row equal to MySQL fetch assoc, pass the res variable. So now we are having the row where the user's email and API key matches. So this will only return one row because we are having the email which is unique. So otherwise you have to do this inside a while. So since this is only having one row, we are doing like this. Okay. So now you can set the result. So the result will be like result equal to array. Now we can pass the status, message and the necessary data. So let's copy it from the login. You can go to here and you can copy this and you can paste it here. So you can see status equal to success and message equal to, let's change the message to something like data fetched successfully. Okay. And you can set the name equal to name. Okay. Email, API key. Okay. That's it. Now we have to set the else part for the if conditions. So that also you can copy it from here. So you can start it from here. Okay. So copy this much. And I think you can paste it here. Okay. Let's check if the else part is correct or not. So else we are having retry. You have to change the message here. So the message will be like unauthorized access. Okay. Now let's check the next else part. The status equal to failed and message database connection failed. Okay, you can check the if condition and you can see that it is the connection variable one. So it's correct. Okay. And the last one is all fields are required. Okay. Yes, now our else part is also correct. Now we can print the result variable. So that's all. So now our profile part is also completed. Now we can do the logout.php part. So the logout part is not necessary, but we are just doing so that you can learn. So logout.php. So in the logout part, what we will be doing is we'll be setting the API key to empty. So next time someone tries to access the API, they won't be able to access because we are checking if the API key is empty or not. So they won't be able to access it. So if we have a logout from the application, the next person will not be able to access it. So I will show you how this works. So let's finish the API part first. So I will create this API fast and I will explain it. So this is our logout.php. Here you can see I am checking if the email and API key is empty or not in the first if condition. Then we are storing the email and API key to variable, just like what we have done in the profile.php. That's all. Then we are connecting it to the database. Then the if condition for database connection. Then inside this, we are typing our SQL query to check if the API key and email matches. It is exactly like what we have done in the profile.php part. Okay, you can see that here. So we are checking if the number of rows match is not equal to 0 or not. And if the number of rows is not equal to 0, that means the email and API key matches. Then we can do the update part for the API. So you can see that update user set API key equal to empty. Okay, you can see this is empty. Where email equal to the given email address. Okay, and we are running the SQL query, and here you can see that I am only passing a string because we are not receiving any kind of data from here. We are simply doing an update query, so you can pass a string like this. So if the update query is successful, we are echoing success. Otherwise, you can see logout failed. And on the else part for the number of rows, you can see unauthorized access. And for database connection failed, and all fields are required. So hope you understand the logout.php part also. So that's all. So we have completed with the registration, login, and logout.php part. So that's all. Let's move to the Android part. Here you can see I have created a new Android project, and we are having one activity, main activity.java, and you can see the activity main.xml file also. So first we will be going to create activity for login and registration. Go to apps, right click mouse, and you can see new, go down and activities, select empty activity. Now you have to name the activity login, and you can click finish. You can also set this activity as launcher activity. So simply check this option here and click finish. So we have created our login activity. Now let's create the registration also. New activity, empty activity. Now this one, you don't have to check the launcher activity, because launcher activity means the activity which opens when the app opens for the first time. So we have to open the login activity first. So you don't have to check the launcher activity here. Now you can click finish. So we have created the login and registration activity. So let's go to the login activity, login.xml file, and you can choose the split mode. Now we will be designing the login form. Let's set the parent layout to linear layout. We have to set the orientation to vertical. We can also provide a gravity center. Okay, now we have to create a text view. So go to the inside linear layout and create a text view. Now let's give it a height, margin, and also give the text. Now you can see the text is in an yellow color. If you want to make this a string, you can simply hover over this and click the line, and you can type Alt plus Enter. So now you can see the option extract string resource. If you click this, you can see the resource name, that is login, and the resource value. And here we are having the value login, and we only need the value login. So you can click OK. Now if you go to the values folder and the strings, you can see a new string, that is login. See? So that's all. Now we have added the text as string. Now let's add the edit text for email and password. So we'll be using the text input layout and text input edit text. Let's give the ID for the first one. So here the first one is email. So ID will be email. So let's create the another one for password. You can simply copy it from here and paste it here. Now you can give the ID, change the ID to password. Now you can change the hint also. Now we can give some margin to the sides to make this look better. So you can see I have added the margin for the email and also for the password. So that's all. So we have created the edit text for email and password. Now we have to create the button. So we have to create the button. So type button warp content. Give the ID for the button, that is submit. Set the text to submit. So here we are having the form for login ready. So you can also create a progress bar and also a text view to show error. So let's do that. So come below the password edit text and create the text view. So let's set the text color. Since this is an error message, we can set the text color to red. For that, you can either give the color directly here. So let's choose some color and you can choose the color from here. You can click the go to straight here and you can click this and you can choose the color here. So you will get the color here. Or you can add the color to inside the values folder. You can see colors.xml and you can add the color red here. So let's add the color like that. Now let's choose the color from the palette. And yes, so we have added the color red. Now you can use this color here. So change this to color red. Now we have to set the visibility for this text to go. Otherwise, you will be seeing this text every time. We only need to see this text when an error happens. So that's all. So we have done the text for errors. Now you can do the progress bar for showing the login progress. Let's give the ID, loading, and you can give the margin for bottom and also set the progress visibility to gone. Okay, visibility gone, because we don't need to show the progress bar all the time. We only need to show it when we click the button. Okay, so you also have to set the ID for the text view, the error one. So let's set the ID error. Okay, so here we are done with all the things. You can see we are having a button for submitting and we are having a progress bar with the ID loading. The button is having the ID submit and a text view to show the error messages, and it is having the ID error. Now we are having the edit text for password with the ID password, then an edit text for the email with ID email. So that's all. And this text view simply shows the text login. That's all. So the main things are below these ones. Okay, these are the main ones. So now we are done with the login part. So let's design the registration part. You can copy this from here and go to activity registration XML part. Go to the split mode and you can paste it here. And go to the top and you can see the context is login. change it to registration. Okay. Now we are having this text that is login. You can change it to registration. So let's add this as a string. You can simply alt enter and choose the option. Okay, that's all. So we have added the text. Now we are having the email, password, and we also need name. So copy this email and paste it on the top. Now we have to change the ID to name and also change the hint to enter name. Okay, now we are having the name option also. So that's all. So our registration part is also completed. We are having an error message text box also. So we are having a text view for showing the registration, and then a text view and edit text for name, and edit text for email, edit text for password, and a text view for error. We'll be showing error message in this, and a progress bar to show the loading, etc. And we are having a button to submit. So that's all. So our registration part designing is completed. Now you can go to the main activity.xml. So this one. So here we will be displaying the name, email of the user after logging in. So for that, you can first of all change the parent layout to linear. Set the orientation to vertical. And you can also give a gravity to center. Okay. Now we have to create a text view. We are having a text view. We can remove this much. Okay. So now we have to show the name of the user and the email of the user. So let's simply give this part something like name. Now you can give some margin and stuffs like that. I will give the margin top, start, end, etc. So I am giving the background color to white, and I'm also setting the background color for the parent layout, the linear layout one, to a bit off-white. Set the background. Let's choose the color from here itself. Okay. You can choose the color from here. A small off-white color. Okay, that's all. So we have choose the color for the background. Now you can see the difference here. If you check it here, you will see the difference. Now you can change the width to match parent. Okay. See, you can see on the palette, you can see the view changing. So that's it. Now let's give a padding and also set the size for the text. So that's all. So our text view is ready. Now you can give a ID for the text view. Let's give the ID name. Now you can copy this and paste it on the bottom. You have to change the ID to email, and you can change the text here. You have to set it to email, and that's all. You can see that there's a too much gap here, so you have to remove the margin top from the second one. Okay, now you can see it's properly done. Okay, you can give a margin top, but just give it 10. So I have set the margin top to 10 dp. So there's a small gap in between, not a big gap. Okay. Now after this, you have to create two buttons, one for logout and one for fetching the user data. You remember that we have created an API, profile.php. You have to use that. So we'll be seeing how to use that using the button that we are going to do here. I will show you how we are going to implement that. So let's create an button for logout. Let's give the ID logout. Now let's give a text logout. Now we have to create a button for fetching the data from the profile.php part. So simply create a button, copy and paste the above code, change the ID. Now we have to change the text also. We can give some text like fetch user. So when we click on this button, we'll be fetching the user which is logged in. Okay, we'll be fetching the data of the currently logged in user. Now we have to give a text view to show the data that we are fetching from the profile. We have to display it somewhere. So simply create a text view for that also. For that, you can copy a text view from here and you can paste it here. Now you can change the ID to fetch result. You can change the text which is given here. Simply remove this and you can see all the margin top, everything is okay. Yes, that's all. Now you can set the visibility to gone. We'll be setting the visibility when we are fetching the data. Okay, so now we are setting it to gone. If you want, you can also set a progress bar, but I'm not going to do that. I'll be showing it on the login part, so you can check that. We'll be showing it on login and register as well. Okay, so you can use same method and implement it here. So let's start with the registration part. So we can go to the registration.xml and we are having the email, name, password, etc. So let's go to the registration Java part. Now we have to create objects for all the edit text and buttons. So create text input edit text. Now we have to create an object for name. Now we have to create an object for email also. And another object for password. So you can cut this from here and paste it on the top. Now we have to initialize this object. For that, text input edit text name equal to find view by id r.id.name. Now you can see a red line. You simply can ignore this. If you click the build option, it will go away. So this is some sort of error from the Android Studio. You can simply ignore this. Okay. So let's duplicate this line and let's change the object text input email and text input password and change the ID email and the next one password. So we have done the initializing of the edit text variables. Now you have to create the objects for button. So button submit. Now let's initialize the button. Now you can set the on-click listener for this button. Okay, now we have set the on-click listener for the button. Inside this on-click listener, we have to call the API. For that, we'll be using Volley. So let's add Volley to our project first. So here you can see I am having an article ready. You can get the link for this on the description. You can scroll down and you will find the post implementation. Before that, you have to add the dependency. So copy the dependency from here and go to your project. You can see Gradle scripts. Choose the second one, scroll down and paste this line inside the dependencies. And you can click sync now. You can close the Gradle now. And you can go to the on-click listener. Now we have to write the code for making a post request using Volley. So go back to the article. So scroll down, you can see we have to add the permission for accessing internet. Yes, we will add it. So you can scroll down further. And you can see creating a post request. And you have to copy this from here. So let's copy this and paste it on the Android. Inside the on-click listener, we can paste this here. Now we have to import all the classes. So click on the red line and you have to type Alt plus Enter. Import class. Do this for all the classes. See, we are importing all the classes. Now we have imported all the classes. You can see all the red line has disappeared and you can see few lines in red. You have to remove this line completely and also this line. You can see the context. You have to change this to get application context. That's all. You have to change the API URL here. So let's change the API URL. You have to check the IP address of the network that you are using. So go to the CMD. So here you can see I have opened the command prompt. Now type ipconfig and hit enter. You can see under the wireless LAN adapter Wi-Fi section, you can see a IPv4 address. So you have to copy this address. Okay. You have to make sure that you are connected to a Wi-Fi network. If you're using a mobile for testing this app, you have to be connected with the same network. You cannot use a Wi-Fi hotspot, etc. You have to connect to a Wi-Fi connection and your desktop and the mobile should be connected to same Wi-Fi network. So I recommend you to use an emulator because it will be running on the same device. So the IP address will not change. Otherwise the IP address will change and it will show error. So let's copy this IP address and go to the Android app. Now here we have to type our URL, http:// then the IP address. Now this much will open the localhost of the XAMPP. Okay. If you try opening this inside a browser, simply click Control and then click on the link using mouse. See, you can see that it opens the XAMPP default page. See? So you can test if your URL is working like this. Okay. Now go to the project. Now after this, you have to give a slash. Then you have to give the folder name. So our folder name is login register Android. So you can see that our folder name is login registration Android. If you want to test this also, you can simply click this URL, control and click the URL. Okay. Here you can see the URL has opened properly. You can see the login.php, logout.php, profile.php, and register.php files. So this shows that our URL is properly working. Okay, you have to test this URL like this. Now go to the Android project. Now we have to specify the file name slash. We are doing the registration part. So the file name is register.php. So this is our API URL. If you want to test this again, you can simply click on the link using the control and you can see all fields are required. That means this link is working. Okay, now we have implemented the on-click listener and we are sending a post request to the API. This one, okay. So we have to get the data, that is name, email, and password from the edit text. So for that we have to create a string. So create a string name, email, and password. Now we have to get the value from the edit text. So name equal to text input edit text name. Okay, this is the object for the edit text. Dot get text. And you can see that it is showing an red line. So if you click on this and type Alt plus enter, you can see a suggestion warp using string value of. Okay, so you simply can use it like this, string dot value of the edit text object dot get text. Okay, now you have to get the value from email and password. So email and this variable name should be changed, text input edit text email. Okay, text input edit text password. So you have to make sure that these variables are different. I'm changing the variables, don't make error here. And here we have to change it to password. Okay, now we have collected the value to variables. Now we have to pass them. For that you have to come down and here inside the get params function we have to pass the parameters here. Okay, so the first parameter will be name and you can pass the name here. Now you can duplicate this line. The second one is email and the last one is password. Now we are passing name, email, and password. Okay, we are checking this inside the API key. If you remember, you can see that we are checking if not empty of $post of name, and the same for email and password. So this is the field key name. Okay, this is the key name, the name, email, and password. You have to make sure this is exactly matching to what we use on the Android also. This one. Okay, these should match exactly to the one that we have used on the API. So we are passing name, email, and password. Now inside the on response, we have to check if the response string is equal to success. So we are passing a string success if the operation is successful. So for that, if response dot equals success. Now if this is successful, we will make a toast message saying registration successful, and also we will open the login activity. Now after the toast message, we have to create the intent for opening the login screen. So intent, create an object equal to new intent. Inside that we have to pass the current class, that is get application context, and the next one, that is login dot class. Now we have to start the activity. For that, start activity. Then pass the intent. So this will call the login activity. Now you have to finish the current activity, that is registration activity. Otherwise this activity will be open always and it won't be nice when you go back from the previous screen. So that's all. Now if the response is successful, we are making a toast message. Then we are making an intent, and the intent is to open the login. Okay, we are starting the activity and finishing the current activity, that is the registration screen. Now on the else part, you can set the text view that we have created for showing error. So we haven't created an object for the text view. So create an object for text view. Now we have to initialize the text view. Text view error equal to find view by id r.id.error. Now if you go to the activity registration.xml file and scroll down, you can see the text view with the id error. So we are going to show the message to this text view. Okay, and by default the progress bar and the visibility for the text view is set to gone. We also have to set the visibility to visible for these two. So go back to the registration.java and create an object for progress bar. Now initialize the object. Now inside the on-click listener, you can set the progress bar visibility to visible. So the progress bar will appear when we click the button, okay, submit button. And you can set the visibility for the progress bar to go on inside the on response. And you can also set the progress bar visibility to go on inside the error part, okay, on error response. That's all. So that's all with the progress bar. Now for the error message, for that you can come to the else part of this if condition and start the curly braces. Now set the text view error dot set text. Now inside this you have to set the error message, that is the response string, because we are passing the error message from the API itself. If the response not equal to success, we are passing error messages like database connection failed, all fields are required, and registration failed, etc. Hope you remember that. If you check the API part, you can see that. And that's it. So we are using the response string. Now after that, you have to set the visibility for the text view. Dot set visibility visible. So now we are setting the visibility for the text view to visible if there is an error. And you have to set this visibility to gone inside the on click listener, because when we click the button again, we have to set this to gone. Okay, hope you understand. Here we are setting the error message visibility to gone and progress bar visibility to visible. And on the on response, we are setting the progress bar visibility to gone. And inside the else part of the if condition, we are setting the text view for the error message visibility to visible, and we are setting the text. Inside the on error response, we are also setting the progress bar visibility to gone. So that's all. Now if you want to check this, you can try running this inside an emulator and check. So here you can see that the app is opened and you can see the login screen is open by default. So in order to move from login to register, we have to set a text view on the bottom, and for on click we have to open the sign up part, that is the registration part. So let's go to the login.java and let's open the activity login.xml. Scroll down and below the button, let's minimize the emulator for now and go to the bottom. Below the button, let's create a text view. If you want, you can copy the text view from the top and you can use that here. You have to remove the color, the text color, and you have to remove the visibility also. Also, you have to remove the text and also set the ID to register now. Okay, now you can set the text. So let's set the text like click here to register. Okay, now you can add this as a string. So that's all. You can give a margin top, like margin top. Let's give a 20 dp. Okay. If you want to give a padding, you can give a padding also. Padding to like 20 dp. Okay, yeah, that's enough. If you want to increase the text size, type text size. Let's make it 20 sp. Okay, that is a bit more. So let's make it 17. And text style to bold. Okay, that's enough. So you can see we are having a text view. Let's set an on-click listener for this text view. So go to login.java and you have to create an object for the text view. Text view, text view. Register now. Now let's initialize the object. Now let's set an on-click listener for this text view. Now inside this on-click listener, we have to create an indent to open a registration activity. So that's all. Now here we are calling the registration activity and we are finishing the login activity. Okay. So you can see an error here. Now you can simply ignore that. If you click the build, it will disappear. Okay. So simply ignore this error message. Okay. Now we can run the application once more. Okay. Now inside the app, you can see click to register. So if you click on the text view, it will open the registration screen. Okay. Now let's type the name, email, password and try submitting it. So you can see I have entered the name, email and password. So let's try submitting it. So you can see it is opening the same screen again. So let's check what's happening. So let's go to the volley error section, on error section, and let's add the error message from here to the text view. So text view error. So you can simply copy this line from here and paste it here. Okay, now change this response to error dot get localized message. Now you can run this again and go to the registration part. You can simply click this button. Okay, now you can see an error message. So this is for clear test traffic. So this happens because we haven't mentioned the clear text traffic to true. This is because we are using HTTP instead of HTTPS. So this is simply a security feature. So you can remove it by going to the manifest, and on the top you can add clear uses clear text traffic, okay, and set this to true. And also we haven't specified the permission for internet, so uses permission internet, okay. So that's it. So inside the manifest, give the permission for internet and also set the clear text traffic to true. This is very important if you are using localhost, okay. You should not use HTTPS inside the localhost domain because you are not having an SSL installed. So it should be HTTP. You should add the clear text traffic to the manifest. So that's it. Now you can try running this again. Now let's go to the register part. And you can simply try clicking the button and you can see all fields are required. Now this is the error message that is returned from the API part. Okay. Hope you remember that we have given all fields are required error on the else part. So now let's enter the values again. Now you can try clicking the button once more. Okay, now you can see a toast message, registration successful, and it takes us to the login page. Okay. Now we haven't implemented the login part. So let's go to the PHP MyAdmin and check if the data is there or not. Now refresh this page. And you can see we are having the inserted data inside the table. You can see the name, email, password, and the API key is blank because we haven't done anything to that. Okay, now we have to implement the login part. Our registration part is completely done. So you can minimize the emulator. You can close the emulator and minimize it. Okay, now we have to go to the login part. So go to the login Java part. Here on the login part, we have to create an object for email, password. So let's create an object. Text input, edit text. And one for email. One for password. Now we have to initialize these objects. So on the top, text input edit text email equal to find view by id r.id dot email. Text input edit text for password equal to find view by id r.id dot password. Now we have initialized the objects. If you don't know what these are the IDs that we have given in the activity XML part. Okay. If you go to the activity login.xml, you can see each items are having IDs. Okay. And you can see the ID, email, and password here. Okay. These are the IDs. Okay. So don't get confused. We are using the same ID on the login and the registration part. So you have to make sure that the ID is there properly. Otherwise, you can also give an different ID, something like email login and password login. And inside the registration, you can give like email registration, password registration, something like that. Okay. In order to avoid confusion for you. Okay. So I'm giving the same ID because it will be much more easier to remember. Now we have to create an object for the button. Now initialize the object and set an on-click listener for the button. Now inside this on-click listener, we have to call the API. So you can copy the line from registration.java. You can copy something like Okay, this much. You can copy it this much from registration part and go to the Java part and paste it here. Now you can see the progress bar and text view for the error is showing error. So you can go to the registration part again, and on the top you can see we have initialized these things. So you can copy this much from the top and go to login and paste it here. Now go to the registration.java and you have to copy the initializing part. So this 2 lines, okay, these 2 lines, okay. So don't get confused. These 2 lines, we are copying it from here and we are pasting them here. Okay, now you don't need to change the ID because I am using the same ID on login and registration. If you are having different ID, you have to make sure you are connected to the correct ID, otherwise it will show error. So that's it. Now you can see an error for the name. You can simply remove this from the line, okay, because we are only having email and password while logging in. Okay, now you can see the API URL. You have to change the registration.php to login.php. And when you go down, you can see an if condition. You can simply remove this if condition because we'll be returning a JSON string. We are not returning a string, we are returning a JSON string. So we have to parse the JSON and then check the if condition and all. Okay. And in here we are passing name. We don't have to pass the name. So you can remove that. Okay. And yeah, that's all. Now we can do the parsing of the JSON. So when the response is successful, when we get the response, we'll be receiving a JSON. So I will show how the JSON looks like. So go to the API part. Now go to the login.php. Now let's try opening this inside a browser. So go to the Android part where you have written the URL and we have to open this URL inside a browser. So click Control and click on the URL using the mouse. Now this opens inside a browser. So I will zoom this. Hope you can see this properly. And you can see we are having an JSON object. We are only having one JSON object. Okay. And we are having status, message. That's all inside this. Okay. So we have to access these. So first one, we have to access the JSON object from the string. Okay. So let's do that. So inside this on response part, you have to create a object for JSON object. New JSON object. Inside that we have to pass the response string. Now you can see a red line here. Click on this and type Alt plus enter. And you can see surround with try catch. Click that. Now this one will be inside the try method. Okay. Now after that, we have to access the status and message first of all. Okay. So string, let's create a string for that. String status. So in order to get the status, since we are only having one JSON object, we don't have to loop through the objects and receive the data. If you want to learn more about parsing JSON, I have a video created. I will link that in the description and also give the link on the I button above. So you can check that out. So in order to receive the data, you have to do JSON object dot get string. Now inside this, you have to pass the key name. Okay. So the key name is status. So if you don't understand what this name is, you can go to the API and here you can see status, message, and that's it. Okay. So this is the key name, status and message, and the data is failed and all fields are required. Okay. These are the data. So go to the Android part. Now let's accept the message also. String message, and we have to get the message from JSON. Okay. Now we have to check if the status is success or not. For that, if status dot equals success. So here we are checking the success part. Okay. Earlier we were checking it directly because we were returning a string here. Okay. Since we are returning an JSON object, we have to pass through the JSON object and then get the status part. Okay. And if status equals success, and now you have to get the name, email, and API key. So for that name, we are having a string we created on the top. You can see that here. So we are assigning values to this. Okay. Scroll down. So let's access the name equal to, we have to access it like JSON object dot get string, and the key name that we have used on the API is name. Okay. You have to make sure that you match the key name that you have given on the API part and here properly. Otherwise, you will not get the data. If you are having any doubts, you can leave the comment. I will definitely respond to your comments. So let's access the email, and we also have to access the API key. So let's do the email part first. Email, and we have to access the API key. API key. So this is the key name that I have used for the API key. You can see this is in red because we haven't declared the variable here. So give a comma, and yeah, that's it. Now, if you don't understand this key name part, go to the API part. In the login, you can see this line. Okay. This line, you can see the name, email, and API key. If you are using something like for the API key, if you are using some other value for the key name, something like this, okay, you have to give this name in order to access the key. Okay. Since we are using the same, this name itself, you can do like this. Okay. Now, if it is equal to successful, we can set a shared preference and we can store that we have logged in. Okay. So this will help us to avoid logging in multiple times. For example, if you logged in once and you close the application, and if you open it again, the login screen will come again. So in order to avoid that, you can set a shared preference. So for that, go to the top and create a shared preference object. Now you have to scroll down and we have to initialize the shared preference. So in order to initialize it, you have to type shared preference object equal to get shared preference. And inside that, you have to set a name for the shared preferences. So I am setting something like my app name. You can give any name here. Then we have to set the mode. So mode private. Okay. Now we have initialized the shared preferences. Come inside the if condition here. And we have to create an editor because we are going to add the value to the shared preferences. So create share preferences dot editor equal to share preferences dot edit. Okay. Now we have to put the value to the shared preference. For that, editor dot put string. We are going to put the string value. So let's give a key name, something like logged in. Okay. And let's set the logged in to true. So if you are logged in, we will set the variable to true. Otherwise, we will set this to false. Okay. So now we are setting this to true. Now you can also store name, email, and API key inside the shared preferences. So duplicate this line. Now let's name. For that, we are having the variable name. And email, use the variable email. And the last one is API key. And the variable name is also API key. You have to make note of this, that this is a key name and this is the variable name. Okay. So be sure of that. Otherwise, if you give code for this also, it will be string. Now it's a variable name. Okay. So you have to make sure this is a variable name. Okay. Now you have to apply this editor dot apply. That's all. Now we have saved the shared preference with these values. Now you can access them from anywhere. So after this, you can create an intent to open the main activity. If the login is successful, we should open the main activity. So for that, intent equal to new intent. Inside that, pass the get application context, comma, main activity dot class. And now you have to start the intent. For that, start activity, pass intent. Okay. Now you have to finish the current activity. So nish. Okay. Now that's it. So scroll to the top, and after the share preference initialization, you have to hit enter. Now here you have to check if, and you have to check shared preferences dot get string. Now you are reading the variables and from the shared preference. Okay. We are reading the shared preference with the key name logged. Now you have to set the default value also. While reading, you have to set a default value. So I am setting it to empty. You can set it to empty, or you can set it to false. Okay. Now you have to check this. So dot equals. Now you have to check if this equals true. So this all are strings. So we have to use the quotes. These are not booleans. These are strings. Okay. So now if the shared preference logged is equal to true, if this is true, we have to open the main activity. So you can copy this intent from here. Okay. This one. And you can paste it here. Okay. That's all. So if the shared preference for logged in is set and it is true, then we will open the main activity. Okay. So that's all. Now you can try running this on the emulator. We have completely done the login part also right now. So you can see the app has opened. Now let's try logging in. So previously we have created an email like support.codecc.com. support@codecc.com. Now the password was 123. Now you can try clicking the submit button. Okay, now you can see the login was successful and it takes us to the main activity screen. So here you can see we are having the name, email, logout, and fetch user part. Now we have completely done with the login part. Okay, now we have to implement the main activity part. That is the logout part and fetch user part. Okay. So let's go to the main activity. First of all, you can close this and minimize this. and go to the main activity and Java part. Now you have to create the objects for the text view, that is the name and email. Go to the top, text view name, text view email. Now you have to initialize them. Text view name equal to find view by id r.id dot. So we have to check the id. I don't remember them. So go to the main activity XML part and go to the text view for name. Okay, now you can see here the id is name itself. Okay, so let's use the id name. Now the text view for email, find view by id r.id dot email. Okay, now let's go to the XML part, that is activity main dot XML. Okay, we are having the text view and we are having the logout button. We are having the text view for showing the results of the fetch user button. Okay, so we have to implement them. Okay, now go to the activity main Java part. Now here we have to create the object for shared preference and also initialize that. So for that you can simply copy it from the login part. Simply copy this line and go to the main activity, go to login and copy the declaration, paste it here. Okay, we have copied these two lines. Okay, now we have to check if the login is true or not. For that you can copy this line from here, this if condition. Okay, now we have to paste it here. Now here we have to check if it equals false. Okay, now if this is equal to false, that means if we are not logged in, we will open the login activity. Okay, so what this will do is it will simply redirect us to the login page if we are not logged in. Okay, if we are not logged in. Okay, hope you understand. Now we have to set the progress bar also, since we are having the progress bar. So let's check the id for the, let's close this login part because we have completed that. You can close the login and registration part. Now we are only having these two files. Okay, so we can easily move around. Okay, now go to the bottom. So here we are not having the progress bar. Okay, let's not do the progress bar here. So now we have to set an on-click listener for the logout button. So create an object for the button. So button logout. And we also need a button for fetching the user details. Okay, so let's create an object for that also. Now we have to initialize these two. Okay, so button logout equal to find view by id r.id dot logout. I think the id is logout. Yes. Now we have to initialize the button for fetch user. Fetch. Okay, sorry. Find view by id dot id dot fetch. Okay, fetch result, I think, or was it fetch profile? Let's check the activity main XML part. Scroll down and you can see it was fetch profile. Okay, so copy it from here and you can paste it here. Okay, now we also have to create an object for this text view and the id is fetch result. Okay, let's do that also. Add it on the top. text view fetch result. And here you can create an object. Sorry, you can initialize the object here. Text view fetch result, find view by ID. Now give the ID. Yeah. Okay. Now we have to set the on click listener for logout button. So let's go to the bottom and type button logout set on click listener. Now inside this we have to call the logout API. So for that you can go to the login and login Java part, and you can copy this much from here. You can copy from here and to here. Okay, copy this much, go to the main activity Java part and paste this here. Here you can see the progress bar part. You can simply remove that. And here inside the onResponse function, you can do something. Let's remove this much only because we need this shared preference part. We will be setting the logged in and this value to empty when we are logging out, and we will apply that here. Okay, so we need this much, and let's remove this much. Okay, so we only need this much. Okay, this much code is needed. So let's format the code. For that you can type Control plus Alt plus L. See, now the code is formatted. Now if the response is equal to success, okay, for that we have to check an if condition, create an if condition. If response dot equals success, open the if condition and close it here. If it is successful, we can set the logged to empty. Simply give it like this. Okay, we are setting all the shared preference values to empty. Okay, hope you understand this. And we will be opening the login activity. So change the intent to login. Okay, now on the else part you can show the toast message. So else, simply create a toast message and give the inside the message part you can simply print the response string. Okay, yeah, that's it. Okay, now inside the on error response part you can remove this much, and you can simply log the error. So print error. Yeah, so this will simply show the error inside the logcat. Okay, if there are error from the volley side. Okay, so we have to pass the email and API key here. Okay, so we have to pass the API key. We have to fetch the email and API key from the shared preference. So let's fetch them. For that you have to come here and shared preferences dot get string. Inside that email, and we have to set a default value. Okay, now let's copy this and paste it here, and this is for API key. Okay, so now here we are passing the email and API key to the API. So change this file name. Okay, change this to logout.php. So we are passing the email and API key which we have stored inside the shared preference. When we log in, you can see here we are storing the data to the shared preference here. So here we are fetching the data. Okay. And the API key is used here. You can see that we are passing the API key. So this will act like a password or something. So this key will verify if we are authorized to access the API. So that's all. Now this all will happen in the background and the user won't be seeing all this. Let's try running this and check this, whether we have made any mistake or not. Okay, now we have to set the name and email. We haven't done that. So you can, let's minimize this once more, and you can copy this line this much and go to the top, come here. Okay, after the initialization of shared preference. Okay, you have to make sure that shared preference is initialized on the top, otherwise you will get error message. Now you have to set the text view for name dot set text. Now we have to get the name, change the email to name. Okay, we need to close one. Yeah, that's it. Now you can do the same for email. So text view email, and the shared preference is email. Okay, so this will get the data from the shared preference and set the text to the text view. Now let's run this. Okay, now you can see the login screen didn't appear. So that is because we have set the if condition here. Okay, hope you remember this. So that will remove the login part again. You don't have to log in again and again. Okay, now you can see the name and email is here. Now let's try clicking the logout button. Okay, now we are getting the field all fields are required. So the error message is all fields are required. So let's check that out, what's happening. So this error message is because some value was not set properly to the shared preference. So you just go to the app and simply uninstall the app. Okay, so you have to simply uninstall this app. So you have to uninstall the app that you have installed. So uninstall it, and you can simply try running it again. Okay, now you can try logging in. Okay, now we have logged in. Now let's try logging out again. Okay, now we are getting another error message, that is unauthorized access. So let's check that. Go to the API part, go to the logout part. Now we are getting this error message when the SQL query is wrong. So let's go to the login.php, and here you can see on the results array, if the update query is successful, we are passing the API key from the database. So this is something that we did wrong. We should not pass the API key from the database, because we are updating the API key after fetching the data from the table. So we'll be getting the previous API key here. Okay, so we have to change that here. So let's change this to API key. Okay, that was the error. So simply change the API key to the new one that we are creating here. So that's all. Okay, now you can save this and come to the application. Now since we are not having the logout functionality, you can uninstall this app again. Now let's run this again and login. Okay, now if you try to click the logout, this should work. Okay, now you can see the logout function is successfully working. Now if you go and check the PHP MyAdmin part, you can see the API key is set to empty. Let's go and check that. So I haven't refreshed the page. So here you can see the API key is set. Now let's try refreshing the page. Now you can see the after we performing the logout, the API key will get removed. Okay, hope you understand. So that's it. Our logout functionality is also working. Go to the Android part now. Now our logout part is completed. Now let's minimize this and we have to implement the fetch data. Okay, for that let's set an on-click listener for the button fetch user. Okay, so let's minimize this logout here, and after that button fetch user dot set on click listener, new on click listener. Now we have to call the API. For that you can copy this much from the logout part, this much. Okay, copy this and you can minimize this again and come here and paste it here. Okay, now here we can see we have set the on click listener, and you have to change the API URL to profile.php. Now if you scroll down, you can see the on response function. So here you can remove this if condition. We'll be setting the text view, and that's all we'll be doing. So text view fetch result dot set text, and we will be setting the response string directly to the text view. Now we have to set the visibility for the text view also. Dot set visibility visible. Now that's all. So we are passing the email and API key to the URL, okay, to the API, and we will be verifying the email and API key. Then we will return the data for that user, and we will get that response in the string, and we are setting it to the text view. So let's try running this. Let's log in. Now here let's try fetching the user. Okay, fetch user, and you can see the data. This is the JSON string. So we can see the fetch user is also successful. Okay, now we are done with the main activity.java part also. Now if you go to the Java login.java part, you can see that we haven't done the else part for the on response function. Here you can see if status is dot equal to success, we are doing the inside part, but after that we have to write else. We have to set the error message to the text view that we have created. So text view error dot set text, and we have to set the message. Okay, here we will be using the message variable. Okay, so this one. Okay, and we have to set the visibility also. Text view dot set visibility and visible. Okay, so let's try logging out. Let's try running this first of all, because we have to update the code. Now you can see the app opened without logging in. Now we are logging out. Okay, let's try fetching the user again. Okay, and that is working. Now let's try logging out. That is also working. Now let's try submitting without entering any data. So here you can see all fields are required. Now let's try with the wrong email and password. Try with correct email and password. Okay, so our login and registration, logout and fetch user also are working. So if you click here, you can see the registration screen is open, but we cannot go back to the login screen. If you click back, it will close the app. Okay, so in order to go back, we have to do the same thing that we have done in the login in the registration part. So let's do that quickly. So go to the login, and you have to minimize this emulator. Okay, now go down and you have to copy this text. and go to the registration. Scroll down below the button, paste this. Now you have to change the ID to login now. Okay, now that's all. Now the text, we have to change the text also. Click here to login. Okay, now we have to set the on-click listener for this text view. So for that, go to the registration.java part, and we have to create a text view object. So text view login now. Now we have to initialize this text view also. So come here, text view login now equal to find view by ID r.id dot, the ID was login now. Okay, now we have to set the on-click listener. You can go to the login.java and copy the on-click listener from there. So you can see that here. Okay, so copy this from here and go to registration.java and you can paste it here. Now change the object name and also change the registration to login. Okay, now that's it. Now you can try running this. Okay, the app is open and you can click here to register and it's working. And let's try this. Okay, now you can see everything is working properly. So hope you understand how to implement this login and registration, and also how to fetch the user using the API key and email. So you simply have to create the API part. You can see the registration API part, this much, and the login API part, and profile part, and the logout API part. Okay, so hope you understand everything. If you are having any doubts, you can leave the comment. I will respond to your comments. And if you like to download the source code of this project, you can go to this website. I will give the link for this website in the description. You can go to this website and I will give the source code here. Currently, it is not uploaded. I will give it here and you can see it here. I will give the link to directly download that. Okay. Hope you understand how to implement the login and registration with the logout. Also, we have seen how to fetch the data, the profile data. So hope you understand that. If you are having any doubts, leave a comment and I will respond to them. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel for more such videos.